Okay, my friends, this is from somebody called Alexander Farley, and he did a good job, so let's give him a thumbs up. And this is the outcropping up in Alberta, and it's a megalithic mystery, and they don't know what to make of this. I do. I know exactly what this is. This is sarcomeres, which is muscles. All right, these are muscles. This is the thin little strips are the connective tissue, the blocky big ones that have these little dimples in them normally. They use a lot of blood. Those are the ones that do the job. And they come in blocks. All these blocky blocks are sarcomeres. And they have also, well, I'll show you what sarcomeres are. Hold on. You see this? These are sarcomeres, and this is too. Now, they are flush with blood inside. The surface outside turns into feldspar. All of the surfaces do, because in this particular event that caused all these things to turn into stone, it was a hot, salty water flood. It caused nucleophilic substitution into collagens and created feldspar. They're all aluminum silicates. I am so deep into this you can't imagine. One side is flat as a pancake, and the other side is flawless because they died in this hot floods flat. That's a goose. And anything that protects you is a membrane, which means your skin, your fingernails, your hair, your feathers. Anything that's on the outside is a collagen, keratin, floppy, stretchy, membranous, tough, you know, it's basically a membrane. And then inside of these, the biological material is sealed, just like it is in this. And I can show you this, and I'll prove it to you, and you'll see it for your very self, uno momento. This inside, which this is the neck, and if you know what to look for, you can see the neck. And this is where the artery was. All right, and this, it died like this and snapped off, and the neck would have come straight off like this here. It's flat on one side, and they all are. Now, this is one of these blocks, same thing. And it is flush with blood in here. You say, oh, that's just a block. That's just a big block. No, it's not. It's a sarcomere. And I'll show you the blood in here in a second. Okay, so here's my claims, my good friends. Caesar here, my goose. There's his feather pattern. Flat as a pancake, because he died like that in the Great Flood. And this is all feldspar, very, very well understood. This appears to be some kind of species that nobody's known about, which is called no-toes. They're built into this foot, and that foot, trust me, is a foot. This is where the main bone comes down, the tibia. The fibula sits right on the side. It's only held in by 3 ligaments, and they just fall right off. All of the ones we found do that, and we have a lot of these. This is not a one-off by any means. Now, that again died like that in the Great Flood, laying this way. That side was down. And it's got all the same architecture as a human foot, except inside there's springs. They don't have bones. Now, let's go from that to this, which is a DNA-tested human lung, exactly like our lung, about the same size as our lung. This is where the heart pushed up against the lung when it died flat, laying like this. Now, why is there no body, bones and ribs and flesh and all that? That became disassociated in the flood because of the chemistry of a hot saltwater flood with all the transition metals from all the blood and all of the things that were in this hot, almost like a soup. And it boiled off the flesh, and once it hit the real thick membranes, which is, these are very, very heavy membranes, and they're collagenous material, which for some reason, and I can't exactly tell you why, it creates what's called aluminum silicates. And they create a coating that protects what's inside. And I'm going to show you, we're going to put some water on there. You're going to see the blood that's still in there. And this here, the same thing with this. This is saturated with blood. And all of these little fibers are the fabric of membranes and skin and tissue and all that stuff. And even of feathers. It's a fabric, and there's like 28 different collagens. So some of them do really heavy duty work, like down on your lungs, which is doing this all day long. They're very, very rubbery. And some of them are kind of stiff and they don't have a whole lot of rubberiness to them. But they still do a job of coating something to keep it separated from the invasive chemistry. It's called membranes. And they're made from these types of products, which are aluminum silicates, which have become fixed during this flood event. Now, let's look at these blocks, which are sarcomeres, as this is. And sarcomeres are red blood, just saturated with red blood, because that's how they do their job of moving in and out to pull your muscles. And there's a ton of them. Each one of them goes a little bit. And I'll show you all the anatomical. Like I say, I'm very, very deep into this. I enjoy it, and I've studied it for a very long time. So pay attention, and if you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to answer them. Okay, I got the microscope all fired up. We're going to be looking at this rock right now is in the microscope. This is the same fabric. You see this? Those little fabric patches, those little white and brown little strappy looking things all over it. That gives it the flexibility like a rubber bag. These also have almost identical, but not quite as stretchy as these, but they are pretty stretchy because these pull in and out. When it was alive, those things had to move in and out, so this had to be pretty floppy. Now, I have to turn the lights off so that you can see it in the microscope. But if you see this, well, actually, I have a better shot of this. Hold on one second. All right, this is when I first took it out of the ground years ago. This was DNA tested, CAT scanned, everything. It's a 100% certain it's a lung. DNA tests prove it. Now, you see all this fabric-y stuff, this white and brown looking stuff? That's the same thing you're going to see on this, right up there. Now, let me just turn the lights off so that it can be seen a little better. Alright, you see it? It's basically identical. That's the one that's in the microscope right now. That one right there is from the lung that was right down there, but you can't see it because it's dark. That's this one here. This one is up there. There's no difference. Now, let me show you this one. Hold on. Let me show you this one when I put some water on it. Right there. We're going to put some water right there. You see, it just looks like brick. And then we're going to look at this, all of the coating and all of that in the microscope in a second. I have this little telescoping microscope here that we can look down at it. And that's what, this right here is up there from that microscope. Now, I'm going to put a little water on there. You see the blood come right out of it. Alright, I'm going to put some water on here, but what I want you to see is all of these things have this little central spot, basically, where blood has to infuse into them. Now, when this died, I can guarantee you it died in this manner right here. And how can I say that? And assuredly, well, because the blood drained down this way. Now, I guess I can put some water on it, and you'll see this is where the blood drained down to this direction. Now, let me put some water on it. It takes a minute for it to saturate in there. But then you will see this is going to be red blood down here, running down this direction, and this will be a different color. You'll see it in a second. Alright, so here it goes. I'm going to put a little water on there. Instantaneously it turns red. You see it? See that? This portion right here. Let me see the best. It's kind of hard to see, especially when it's wet, until it dries up a little bit. Let me let it dry up a little bit, and then maybe you can see it better. But this right here, this whole area is red and running down to here. As it dries up, it'll become a little more obvious. It's hard for me to tell what you can see and what you can't see, but I can tell you I can see it. It's pretty obvious for me. And this is all the sarcomere material, and that pinches in. That block is the same blocks that you saw. And this is skeletal muscle, and I'll show it to you in a second. But this, I'm hoping you can see that. And there's little bumps here and there in it, and that's where the blood goes down to service. It takes a ton of blood to do this work. And then there's going to be the little connective tissue ones that are between. They're not as thick as the muscle part. All right, I think this is pretty obvious. This is the red right there. You see that red? I hope you can. Again, I don't ever know what you can see or not, but I can see it quite well, especially when I twist it to different angles and the light at different ways and so forth. But that's where this was saturated with blood, and when it died, it was in this manner, died like that, so the blood settled down this way. That's why this is a different color. All right, I hope you understand this. This is one of those sarcomeres, and these were absolutely enormous creatures. They're just absolutely gigundous. As big as you could. Nobody could ever even imagine this. So don't think you're crazy because you can't imagine it, because nobody could. It's just one of those things that was just too far from a person's mind to think of this. It just fell into my lap, so it's not something I went looking for. Now what you're looking at right there is one of these blocks. They're called sarcomeres, and they're all separated and they pinch together. Let me show you in extreme detail. All right, what we're going to be looking at is these right here. That's these little strips of muscle, and they're skeletal muscle. And then of course you have the other types, the cardiac, which interweave and so forth, and you have the smooth muscle. Now, let's keep going. All right, so here's live tissue. This is the skeletal muscle. These are the sarcomeres I just showed you, and this is a sarcomere. The red blood pulls into the connective tissue to make your muscles contract. This is one of those blocks. This is the actual contraction happening. These are the blocks, and they pull in like this, with some connective tissues in between, these little tiny stripes of connective tissues. And then when they pull together, if you can see, they're just stripe after stripe after stripe. And there's so many stripes in there you could never even imagine. And they are seen in many places, and I can show you some places that'll disturb you. You see that? That's basically the same as this, only this is more of a connective tissue going from, I believe it is some kind of an implantation right there in the shoulder or wherever. And then it comes out, and they come out in what they call abrupt transitions. There's one, there's another one, and then you get into the muscle, which is just floppy and breaks. But these are abrupt transitions. Now, look at, they're separated by these little, what they call leucine-rich proteins. They're membrane fluids. They're synovial fluid, And they have to be very fluid to be able to move. And they are one of the most fluid, well, as far as I know, they are the least coefficient of friction of anything there is. If you can see that synovial joints at the bottom there. It's almost nothing compared to the rest. Even Teflon on Teflon is like 0.04 is the least it can be, and this is 0.003 is the synovial joints, which is this fluid stuff. Sinus fluids, synovial joints. Now, so I'm pretty much showing you pretty good evidence that creatures were enormous. Muscles, tendons, all of that stuff was enormous. And then there was other ones that lived at the same time, apparently, because they all seem to have died in the same flood. Or at least, well, they're on top of the surface of the earth. I didn't go digging for these, basically. There was a very small amount of excavation done here on my property, and they just popped up. And then I started looking around the rest of my property, and they're all over the place, everywhere. And because there's a lot of stone walls. Now, where the stone walls come from, somebody dug them up? I don't know. Or were they just laying on top of the ground? I don't know. But they were in these walls. Now, I didn't go digging virtually for nothing. Maybe a little tiny bit here and there, but I didn't go out with a shovel. They did some work on, they dug a little foundation for my wife's office. When they did my wife's office, I dug into whatever they dug out of there, and I found some stuff there, yes. Okay, so what I'm saying is creatures were giant. This was some form of skeletal muscle that, and these are the sarcomeres, and these are the connective tissues that ran, whatever that giant creature was, and they were giant. There's absolutely no way to deny that anymore. I mean, just think about what you're seeing there and what the odds are that that's just an unnatural formation. How about this? These are tendon fibrils. You see these little fibrils, fibril. These here are somewhere in one of these bundle clusters. And you see how one of these little blocks here comes out and has a bazillion other little ones. And then every one of those has a little thing in it. And then they end up coming out to the end, which is the fibril. That fibril attaches to a ball. Hold on, I don't hear this. Those fibrils don't go nowhere. They go to these balls. And these balls anchor inside of the body somewhere. Some of them are in bones, some of them are in body tissue, some of them are in tendinous material. You have a bunch of anchors in your body that hold you together. And here's what they look like in different areas of the body and how they lock in and so forth. And where are we looking here? We saw all that. And these are the way what happens is all going down here, these are all going out to your muscles. All right, eventually they'll be in your muscle here. But going back this way, you see these abrupt transitions? And this sheath, this is all membranes. It's all collagens. And they become invaded by this nucleophilic substitution in this hot waters, and this would come apart and you could see that actual tendon. I have them all over the place. But the abrupt transitions are where the tendon materials start to deteriorate. I mean, the muscle starts to deteriorate, and it goes back into a real fibrous material, which is your tendon. You see the tendon? This is what attaches you down to your bones. And that stuff does not break. And I have all kinds of information about that. I have all of this stuff. I have one right here. Here's one that's in my shop. This is the tendinous material. You see, that doesn't break. You see how that's brown? It doesn't hardly have any blood in it. There's no muscle tissue. It's a very fibrous, tough stuff. And over here, there's the bone. There's a big bone over here. And then you run into the bloody stuff, which is saturated with blood, which is these things. You see how they're broken off right here? Broken off right here, broken off right here. Those are the abrupt transitions. That's an abrupt transition. These are abrupt transitions. That's an abrupt transition. And then it goes into the muscle, which is just all floppy and gooey. You see that? Those are muscle fibers. And you say, ooh, look at those tiny, tiny little things. Well, guess what? They are not as tiny as you think. These are little muscle fibers, getting a little closer. These are muscle fibers. Look at this. Look at the blocks. You see those little tiny blocks? You see those? That's what your muscles are made out of. Those are your sarcomeres. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that absolutely incredible? I get freaked out every time I look. And not only that, wait till you see this. Here's what they look up really close. You see that? Now, again, that's this stuff right here. And they have little tiny holes in them where blood goes down into them to service them. Because that's, again, everything is worked with the blood and the muscle. They have to be very gooey and have to do all this. Now, there's connective tissues in amongst this as well, because otherwise they just fall apart. So there's a lot of connective tissue, and there's a lot of this red fibery muscle, and a red floppy muscle, I'm sorry. The other stuff is the fibery stuff. Okay, my friends, you're in for a treat as I am. I have not done this yet with the Catalase test. Catalase is an enzyme that is in the membranes. It's in the membranes, and what it does is it kills invasive oxygen species, reactive oxygen species, and it breaks them down and liberates oxygen. So you see a bubbling effect. Now, what I have here is the sarcomere, and up there you can see the membrane, which is on the outside here. This is the outside, see here? Let me turn the light off. This will take a second. You see all the white? That's connective tissue. Now, this is the membrane. That's its width. Now, let me see if that's pretty focused. Not bad. Now, this is that feldspar stuff that I talk about. This is the membrane that protects this flesh from being invaded. Now, I'm going to put a little hydrogen peroxide on it, and we're going to see if we can get a reaction. Now, it might take a while. It might not react at all. I don't know. I haven't done this on this particular one. It doesn't look like it's reacting at all. And it just might take a while. Let me come right down on top of it, because you have to be really pretty close, because all we're doing is looking for bubbles of oxygen. Yep, there it is. You see it bubbling up? Right in that crack, see it? There it is right there. That's what you look for to see if you have the enzyme, and the enzyme is only there if it was a protective oxygen enzyme, which is what you got right here. You see it blowing right up. There it is right there. I mean, I've proven this in so many different ways. It's just, it can't be denied anymore. It just can't be denied. It can just be dismissed. And that's what's happened. They don't care to look at anything that disrupts the current line of thinking, which is not right. It's just not right. And these things prove it. The things I'm showing are no guesses here. And these things can be tested. It's not something that I'm just saying, oh, you either take my word for it or not. I've already done the DNA tests, CAT scans, chemistry, anatomy, understand the process, nucleophilic substitution, the invasion. I've examined all the ancient texts, Velikovsky's account of what happened, which was written everywhere in the world. It wasn't just him making it up. He went to every culture, every library, every museum, every place where they were storing all this information, and dug through it and found out that everybody in every culture and every place in the world had the same story. 3,500 years ago, there was a devastating hot water flood. Now, prior to that, it looks like they were, I don't know what was going on. This has got to be tested and looked into, but this is no joke. And these things with this angel being found in Russia, that's very scary, but to be perfectly honest with you, because it talks about all these things coming to fruition again, with 4 angels being sequestered under the Euphrates River, saved for this exact moment in time, or for an exact moment in time. I don't know if this is it, but boy, I tell you, it sure looks like it's getting pretty close. Okay, this is called the Statue del Gigante. And there's his kneecap right there. That is that tendinous material, runs right down to the leg, to the foot. This is all the red muscle underneath. This right here is exactly what should be in his arm that has broken off. Now, of course, at the time, they all deteriorated. Now, they tried to fix this guy with some rebar in his head and all that, and people point to that and they say, oh, it's just a sculpture, there's rebar in it and everything. No, they tried to fix him. He still fell apart. This, nobody put that in there. That was from his body when he became, boom, turned into marble. And they are literally everywhere. And everybody's just dismissed them as being statues. Well, they are, but they originally were alive. A lot of them. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying a lot of them. And I have seen a lot of really very, very excellent ones. And they're still in excellent shape, white marble. But inside the white marble, you can literally see the veins coming down. And they're blue inside the white marble. I'm not kidding you. And I've looked at them and I was just freaked out. I forgot to capture those shots, but all of this stuff needs to be re-examined anyway, so it's time to re-examine it. And I have been for years, and I think I've got a pretty good handle on this. Now, I've shown this a million times. That is the connective tissue, the tendinous material that runs down the leg, and then you have a lot of muscle and red, really heavy-duty red fleshy stuff to make the muscle work. And then you have your kneecap, which runs over here. One tendon runs under the other, basically on the kneecap. Now watch this. Okay, my friends, I just did this on the sarcomeres. You see that little bump right there? That's where the blood comes out to service all of this red tissue around here. You see how it's red running from here down this way? That's how it died, with it facing down this way. And the blood sort of filtrates through the tissue and sort of collects down at the bottom. That's why it's a different color up here. This is a sarcomere. And a sarcomere is a muscle, and I'm going to show you that in a second. And remember this little dot. This is the most important thing of the whole thing that I'm showing you here. And when they're red, it's 100%, well, not 100%, but it's being flushed with red vital artery blood. If it's black, it's probably a vein, or it's completely saturated with vein blood. But more than likely it is a vein, because there'll be tubes of veins that have to take the expended blood, because once it's used in here, it has to go somewhere. The veins are the things that take it back. Alright, what we're looking at is these, which is skeletal muscle. And there's different varieties of them, but they are in little blocks called sarcomeres. Alright, I know this is very, very difficult to believe, but as you saw, this is saturated with blood. This surface around here is this surface with all these little fibers that I showed you. This is the sarcomere, you know, magnified very, very heavily, and this is magnified extremely heavily, and this is electron microscope. But we are literally down at this point in one of these little blocks. Whether it's a full block, I don't know. Whether it's a full block this way, I don't know. Whether it's coming this way, I don't know. But it's one of these sarcomeres. And there's Slurpees all the way around. Slurpees is this stuff here. This stuff here. Small leucine-rich proteins. They're all the way around, all the way around, oops, all the way around. And they're thick. And I think I've shown that in a microscope, or I will. And they're made of this really durable, floppy, collagen package. And that allows them to slide back and forth. And just something, a little off from the fossils, but as you get older and you stop moving a lot, this stuff here is gooey. All right, it's gooey. It's gummy and gooey. And if you do not move, it will stiffen up. That's what, when you get stiff and you can't move your legs, you can't lift your legs up, you go, oh, they hurt like hell. I work with an autopsy guy, and he does autopsies all the time. And he says when he sees a guy or a person who's fascia, which this is fascia, and it coats everything. On top of this, there's another coating of fascia. This fascia, subfascia, fascially, all this kind of words. But there are layers of goo that your body has to slide through. One of these layers of goo, this fascia, coats all of your, let's say your back, all of the little tendons run all over your back. It's absolutely phenomenal how many tendons, and they all have to do this and that and go back and forth this way and in and out, and the complexity is just staggering. So if you don't do all these kind of things all the time daily, excuse me, it locks up on you. And he could tell when it's locked up, because he says instead of being able to just push the stuff to the side, he has to actually use a scalpel and cut it because it's so thick and stiff. And then he says, I know that guy must have been in a lot of pain. Okay, so don't forget, this is the muscle closer. These are the sarcomere. And don't forget, I say this is one of these tiny little fibers, and I mean tiny. It's not one of those big bundles, it's one of those tiny little fibers. And they come in these blocks, you see this? And that's what we're looking at here, is a block. Alright, that's the same kind of thing we're looking at there. They come in blocks. Of course, as you die and they dry up and so forth, they don't look exactly perfect like that. But I'll show you what they look like when you're alive. A real close-up. That's pretty darn close, but you want to see a real close-up? Hold on. You see that? That's all the tiny fibers that were in those little bundles. And there's going to be spots in here. You see how these brown ones are here? And you see how these were very red, and this is brown, and this is like almost looking white, and this is purple looking over here. That's the different transitions of blood through the fibers as they're working. I don't know whether it was just taken after it died or what's going on, but I imagine that's the case. But you see the different colors? That's the way blood transitions and gets used. Your blood comes in red, it goes out blue or black in mud fossils. And this one here looks like it had been out of the body for a while, because you don't normally see that brown during the transfer of blood in the body. It's either black or red or blue. I believe. I could be wrong. But these are these blocks. These are these blocks. See, and that's just saturated with blood. It's one of these things in here. Now, and they do come different shapes and sizes. They're not always this exact block, but this is one of the skeletal muscles. And the skeletal muscles, I don't believe, are all exactly the same. I think some of them, well, let me show you some other muscle bundles that are not identical to this, but are still muscle bundles. You see these? These are also muscle bundles. And you see how they have these little holes in them? That's where the blood goes down. All right, and there'll be a vein somewhere in here where it sucks the used blood back up. Now this is a mud fossil, and this is the red blood it needs this to make the muscles work. Now, this I'm trying to figure out exactly where this was in there. This way or that way, I don't know. But it's one of these, this type of sarcomere. And again, your body has all kinds of different muscle tissue. I think there's more than 3 different types of muscle, but let's go with the 3. And there's different attachments, and there's different transition zones, which means, well, let me show you what I'm talking about. Alright, this right here is one of my specimens, and this right here, there's a bone. This glues a very short strip of tendon, and virtually all your muscles have a very little bit of tendon, or sometimes a lot, but usually it's short. And then it transitions from that very tough tendinous material. It has just a little bit of give, just enough to take the impact out. And then it goes into muscle. And the muscle needs a lot of red blood. See the red blood? See that red? You don't see that here. Don't need it. Don't need it. There's almost no blood here. Here you have profuse amounts of blood, as I just showed you before, where you could see the sarcomeres and see the blood in between them. And if you could get down to that point, you would see that here. Now, here's the transition zones. There's an abrupt transition from where it glues in, literally glues, into the bony material. Then you have a tendon. Then it goes into a very abrupt transition as this actually weaves. If you could see this, and you might be able to. Let me come in here. It actually, this is really not a good shot of it, but it actually wraps around and comes back. And there's little loops going in there. And then it turns, see this right here? And this right here? That is abrupt transition as well. It's going from the first initial stages of really tough tendinous connective tissue, because you're working your way out to where you have your lump muscle. Like if you make a fist and you make your bicep, you're going to feel there's a big ball out here of muscle, and right down there you're going to have a little strap running down to where your bone is at the end. That's the tendon. You can actually feel it in your own body. Just feel it. You'll feel a little tendon, and then you'll feel it almost instantly go into sort of puffing up, and then if you make a big, strong muscle, this will puff up like that. And that's just the way it works. So originally you have almost no give, enough to sort of it takes it can absorb some really hard rips. That's what tendon's supposed to do, is to protect you from ripping your muscle. And then you go into your muscle, which in this connective tissue area, which is got to hold you in together. And then it starts to get really weak out here, and then you get into the muscle bundles, and they're really pretty weak. But you need a hell of a lot of blood out there to make them constrict. All right, remember I said how complicated your back is, and all the tendons and all the things that go along with it? Look at that. That is the complexity of how your back has to move and twist and spin, and all of this has to go this way and that way and back and forth, and all of these things have to move. You stop moving them, sooner or later they're going to glue up. I'm telling you, that's what happens. All that stuff has to keep moving. And it's a hard thing to do, but that's the way it works. Here, let me just show you something. I mentioned how you will glue up. All of that stuff has to slide. Each one of them has to go separately so you can move. Otherwise, when you try to go, it pulls, and when they pull, they can hurt, and that will restrict you from moving. Then you get more locked up. Somehow you have to very slowly move. And here I'm going to tell you the truth of the whole story. if you move, and I'm talking about an inch in a minute, I'm talking just barely move, to a point where there's no real pain. You can't have any pain. If you have pain, you're losing any hope of recovery, because you're just more inflaming it. So you just have to get to that point where you feel like something's going to happen there, and then just stay there and just slowly move a little more, a little more, a little more, and that will make those things move. And then you have to sort of slowly, but I mean, I'm talking ever so slowly. You can't even imagine how slow I'm talking about, to get to that point of where there's just a taste of restriction, and then just give it a little more, a little more, a little more, but no pain. Don't get to the pain point. I'm telling you right now. Trust me. Okay, I sort of got a little lost here. I just want to be sure I've shown you this. This is muscle tissue, cut off blocky. It was some type of muscle tissue. I'm not sure which one that is. However, that is identical to this. Virtually identical. This blocky muscle tissue. And it also comes in this style here, whether maybe this is part of what we were just looking at, I don't know. But this is just phenomenal, the sizes of these things. I have no way to explain it other than they are here, and there's nothing we can do about it. They were here. Now look at this. This is a tendon. This is the tendon strap that comes off the tendon. It goes through a hole, and there's a ball on the end of that strap, and that ball is supposed to be locked in here. This is an injury. This is a sports injury. It's ripped out. Now, that ball attached to that strap, attached to this tendon, allows this to lock in and pull back and forth against your arm or whatever you're doing. Primarily this is on your stomach and so forth. These are like flat ones that lay down. And this is, I'm going to be doing a video on the blocks that are all these shaped blocks all over the world. It's just amazing. They can't figure out what it is. You can see easily what these blocks are that are everywhere. And they have these bumps on them because they take them off of tendons and they leave the little bumps sticking on them. You know, everybody's, well, what are those bumps sticking off of these walls? Well, they're these bumps. Anyway, this is microscopic, as you can see. Well, let me show you what is not microscopic and is exactly that. That's what's not microscopic and is exactly that same tendon. Originally, the flesh was up to here. These things are much stronger than red flesh, which they normally mount into on the stomach and that areas. You see there's another ball here, there's balls here all over the place. There was a ball here. This was a strap at one time. And that's the core of it, and I'm sure it came right over to here. Because they form in rows and blocks where they just keep locking onto you so that you can pull against your muscles and so forth. These are the tendons, and I showed you, I think I did, the back and all that stuff, how many tendons are locked in. This is the kind of stuff they lock into. That's how they do their pulling. I know, don't point at me. I didn't do it. It's just here, and it's gigantic. And this was where all the red fleshy sort of stuff ran off, and the ball, being much tougher, remains. And that guy better be careful. The straps are not nearly as strong as the balls.